There's a written pattern available to go with this video from sizes extra small to 5XL. The link will be in the description box. Hey guys, welcome to another video. This tutorial is for a size medium. We're going to be needing a 4.5mm hook and a 5mm hook as well, finger weight yarn, a couple of stitch markers and a tapestry needle. To begin, grab your 5mm hook and make a slip knot and make a chain of 121. Okay, once you've chained up 44, go ahead and attach a stitch marker to the 44th chain. Okay, and then continue chaining. 45. I have 121 chains. Go back and count to make sure you have the right number of chains, and then we're going to remove this hook, and then we're going to grab a 4.5mm hook, and then we're going to begin. Then we're going to flip this, and then in the second chain from our hook, work into the back bump, work a yarn over slip stitch. To work a yarn over slip stitch, yarn over into the back bump of the second chain from our hook, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull this loop through. Yarn over into the next back bump, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull through. Okay, so work yarn over slip stitches until you get to the stitch before the stitch marker, and then I'll meet you guys. I just worked the chain before the chain with the stitch marker. At this point you should have 76 stitches, yarn over slip stitches, and then we're going to remove the stitch marker, and then we're going to begin working slip stitches. Into the next stitch, work a slip stitch, and then go back and reattach the stitch marker. And continue working slip stitches until the end of the row. Okay, I just worked the last stitch. At this point you should have 120 stitches, 44 slip stitches, and 76 yarn over slip stitches. And to work row 2, chain 1, and then 10, and from here on and out we're going to be working in the back loop. So work a slip stitch in the back loop of the first stitch, in the back loop, sorry. Okay, work a slip stitch, next stitch, work a slip stitch. Okay, continue, and then when we get to the stitch that has a stitch marker in, I'll meet you guys back. Okay, I just hit the stitch that has the stitch marker. Remove the stitch marker, and then work a slip stitch in the back loop of the stitch. Reattach the marker, and then begin working yarn over slip stitches. Continue and work your way till the end, and that's it for row, and that will be it for row 2. For row 3, chain 1 and then work your way back up. Okay, and remember, when we get to the stitch that has a stitch marker, we're going to begin working slip stitches in the back loop, and then for row 4 work your way back down. I'll meet you guys at the end of row 4 so we can begin working the next step. Okay, so I'm at the end of row 4. For row 5, chain 1 and then 10, and then work yarn over slip stitches until the stitch before the stitch marker, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, so I'm here. Go ahead and remove the stitch marker. You should have 76 stitches, and that's it for row 5. For row 6, chain 1 and 10, and then work your way back down. And when you get to the last stitch, I'll meet you guys back. Okay, I'm at the end of row 6 for 7, chain 1, and then 10, and work yarn upper slip stitches in the back loop until you get to this stitch, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, I'm here. Next step is to work off one stitch from row 4, which is going to be a slip stitch, but we're going to be working a yarn over slip stitch into that stitch. So yarn over into the next stitch, work one yarn over slip stitch. Okay, and then that's it for row 7, chain 1 and turn, and we're going to work yarn over slip stitches all the way down, and when we get to the last stitch, I'll meet you guys back. Okay, I'm at the end of row 8. For row 9 and 10, we're going to repeat rows 7 and 8. Basically, we're going to chain 1, then 10, and then work our way up, and after working the last stitch of the previous row, we're going to work off one stitch from row 4, chain 1, and then work our way back down. I'll meet you guys at the end of row 10 so we can work the next step. I'm back, and I'm at the end of row 10. For row 11, chain 1, and then 10, and then we're going to work yarn over slip stitches until the last stitch of the row, and then I'll meet you guys. I'm here. Remember, we're still working row 11. Next step, we're going to work off 2 stitches from row 4. We're working yarn over slip stitches, so into the next available stitch on row 4, work a yarn over slip stitch. Now chain 1, turn, and then for row 12 we're going to work yarn over slip stitches all the way down. Then when we get to the last stitch, I'll meet you guys back. Okay, I'm at the end of row 12. So for row 13 and 14, repeat rows 11 and 12, and then I'll meet you guys back. Well, I just worked the last stitch of row 14. For row 15, chain 1, and then 10, and then we're going to work our way up. And when we get to this stitch, I'll meet you guys back for the next step. Here, almost done with row 15. At this point, you should have 82 stitches. Remember, we started with 76, and then we added one stitch twice. That's plus 2, 78. And then we added 2 stitches. We worked up 2 stitches twice. That's 4 stitches added. Then that makes it 82. So next step is we're going to work off 4 stitches from row 4. We're going to be working yarn over slip stitches. Into the first available stitch, work a yarn over slip stitch. Sorry. Next. Three, and then 4. Now we have 86 stitches. We worked off 4 stitches plus 82, we have 86. So that's it for row 15. For row 16, we're going to chain 1, work our way down for row 16, and then repeat row 15 and 16 for 17 to 18, and then I'll meet you guys. Okay, I'm at the end of row 18. At the end of row 18, you should have 90 stitches. To begin row 19, chain 1, and then 10, and then work your way up, and when we get to this stitch, I'll meet you guys back for the next step. Okay, I'm here. Remember, you should have 90 stitches, and then you should have 30 unworked stitches remaining. So go ahead and count to make sure you have the numbers correct. You should have 30 unworked stitches from row 4 remaining. Then next step is we're going to work into all of the remaining unworked stitches. Into the first, work a yarn over slip stitch. Next. Okay, so continue and work your way. I'll meet you guys when we work the last stitch. Just worked the last stitch and we're officially done with the armhole shaping. If you're impressed with how this is coming along, please consider subscribing to my channel and be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, and please share this to your friends who you know find contents like this useful. For the next row 20, chain 1, and then okay, at this point you should have 120 stitches, which is actually the same number of stitches we started out with for row 1. So you should have a total of 120 stitches right now. For 20, chain 1 and then turn, and then we're going to work yarn over slip stitches in every single stitch until the last stitch, and then I'll meet you guys back. Just finished up working row 20. Next step is repeat row 20 for row 21 to 68, and then I'll meet you guys back. At the end of row 68, for row 69, chain 1 and work your way back up until you have 30 stitches remaining unworked. And then for 70, chain 1 and work your way back down, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, I'm at the end of row 70. For row 71, chain 1 and then work your way back up until you have 4 stitches remaining unworked, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, I have 4 stitches remaining unworked. For row 72, chain 1 and then work your way back down, and then repeat the last 2 rows for 73 to 74, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, I'm at the end of row 74. For row 75, chain 1 and then work your way up until you have 2 stitches remaining unworked, and then for row 76, chain 1 and then work your way back down, and repeat rows 75 and 76 for 77 and 78, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay guys, so at the end of row 78, for 79, we're going to chain 1 and then work our way up until we have 1 stitch remaining unworked. And then for row 80, we're going to work our way back down and then repeat 79 and 80 for 81 and 82, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, I'm at the end of row 82. For 83, chain 1 and then turn, and then work your way up, and when we get to this last stitch, I'll meet you guys back. Guys, I'm back. Now, at this point, you should have 76 stitches. Go ahead and attach a stitch marker to the stitch you just worked now. Okay. We're going to begin working on these short rows together onto the first one. This row has just 1 unworked stitch. We're going to work a yarn over slip stitch into that stitch. Okay. The next short row should have 1 unworked stitch. Work another yarn over slip stitch into that stitch. Then the row after that should have 2 unworked stitches. Work into the first one and then into the second. The next should have 2 unworked stitches also. Work a yarn over slip stitch. Next should have 4 unworked stitches. Okay, next should have 4. And the last should have 30. So the first. So go ahead and work in each stitch, and then I'll meet you guys at the end. So for 84, chain 1 and then 10, and now we're going to begin working slip stitches in the back loop like we did for the other side. Into the first stitch, work a slip stitch. To the next, work slip stitch. Go ahead and work 42 more. You should have 44 slip stitches in total. Begin working yarn over slip stitches for the rest of the row. So into the next stitch, work a yarn over slip stitch. Next. Okay. So continue until the end of the row, and then I'll meet you guys back. So at the end of row 84, for 85, chain 1 and then turn, and then work your way up, working yarn over slip stitches, and then when you get to the stitch that has stitch marker, begin working slip stitches in the back loop, and then when we get to the last stitch, I'll meet you guys back. Okay, so I'm here at the end of row 84. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please can you do so now? Thank you for supporting me. For row 85, chain 1 and then work your way down. Remember, when we get to this stitch that has a stitch marker, we are going to begin working yarn over slip stitches. Okay guys, so I'm at the end of row 86. For 87, chain 1 and then work your way up. Remember, when we get to this stitch that has a stitch marker, begin working slip stitches. I'll meet you guys at the end of the row. I'm back. I just worked the last stitch of row 87. This is the last row, so go ahead and fasten off. And you're done with the back panel. Okay, so for the front panel, we're going to be working in 2 panels. The right hand side and then the left hand side, and then we're going to be using the garter like stitch to connect both panels. First, we're going to be working the right hand side panel, and to begin, work the same instructions for the back panel from row 1 to row 20, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, at the end of row 20, for row 21, chain 1 and then 10, and then yarn over slip stitch in each stitch until you have 20 stitches remaining, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, I'm back and I have 20 stitches remaining unworked. That's it for row 21. For row 22, go ahead and chain 1 and then 10 and work yarn over slip stitches in every single stitch until the end, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, I'm at the end of row 22. For 23, chain 1 and then turn and work yarn over slip stitches in every single stitch until you have 4 stitches from row 22 remaining unworked, and then I'll meet you guys back. At the end of row 23, I have 4 stitches from row 22 remaining unworked. Then for 24, chain 1, 10, and then work your way back down, and repeat 23 and 24 for 25 to 32, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, so I just worked the last stitch of row 32. For row 33, chain 1 and then 10, and then work yarn over slip stitches in every single stitch until you get to this last stitch, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, I'm here. Now we can work on the short rows together. At this point, you should have a total of 80 stitches. Okay, So we're going to work on the 4 stitches on this short row. So go ahead into the first one, work a yarn over slip stitch. Okay, into the next 2, 3, and then 4. Okay, now we're going to work on the next. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Okay, so go ahead and work. I'll meet you guys at the end of this one. Okay, I'm here. Now we're going to work on these 20 stitches. Into the first one, work a yarn over slip stitch. Then into the next. So go ahead and work your way until the last stitch. Okay, I just worked the last stitch. At this point, you should have 120 stitches. Okay, so for 34, chain 1, and then 10. And we're going to work yarn over slip stitches in every single stitch until the last. Then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, so I'm at the end of row 34. For row 35, chain 1, and then 10, and then we're going to work our way up until the last stitch. Then I'll meet you guys back. Okay guys, so I'm at the end of row 35. Now go ahead and repeat rows 34 and 35 for 36 and 37, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay guys, so I just worked the last stitch of row 37. We are done with this right hand section. So for this stitch marker, count from this, gonna stitch this last stitch and attach a stitch marker to the 40th stitch. So attach a stitch marker to the 40th stitch, and then fasten off and leave a tail long enough to seam this to the back panel. Okay, to begin making the left hand side, grab a 5mm hook, make a slip knot, and make a chain of 121. So I have 120 chains. I'm going to remove this hook and grab the 4.5mm hook and make an extra 1 chain. Okay, and then we're going to flip, and we're going to be working to the back bumps of the chains. Into the second chain from our hook, work a yarn over slip stitch. Into the next chain, in the back bump, work another yarn over slip stitch. Continue and work your way across the entire chain. Okay, I just worked the last stitch, and that's it for row 1. For row 2, chain 1, and then 10, and from here on and out we're going to be working in the back loops only. So into the back loop of the first stitch, work a yarn over slip stitch. Next, continue and work your way until the last stitch. Okay, so I'm at the end of row 2. Now repeat row 2 for row 3 to row 4, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay guys, so I'm at the end of row 4. For row 5, chain 1, and then 10, and then we're going to work yarn over slip stitches in the back loop until we have 4 T stitches remaining on work. So work until you have 4 T stitches remaining on work, and then I'll meet you guys back. I have 40 stitches remaining unworked, and this is the end of row 5. So for 6, chain 1, and then 10, and work your way back down. So I'm at the end of row 6. For 7, chain 1, and then 10, and then work your way up until the last stitch, and then I'll meet you guys back so we can work all 4 stitches from row 4 together. Okay, I'm here. We have 80 stitches. Now we're going to work all 4 stitches from row 4. We're going to be working yarn over slip stitches. So into the first available stitch, work a yarn over slip stitch. Then second, third, and then the fourth. Okay, and that is it for 7. For 8, chain 1, and then 10, and work yarn over slip stitches all the way down, and then repeat rows 7 and 8 for 9 to 16, and then I'll meet you guys back. Guys, I'm back at the end of row 16. I wanted you guys to see exactly what we're doing here. If you look, you can see that we're mirroring what we did for the right hand side panel on this side. Like, this is going to be a mirror image of this one, and this one is going to be a mirror image of this. So this is it for 16. For 17, chain 1, and then 10, and then we're going to work yarn over slip stitches all the way up. When we get to this last stitch, I'm going to meet you guys back so we can work on these remaining stitches from row 4 together. Okay, I'm back. I want to mention that at this point you should have 100 stitches, and then you should have 20 remaining stitches from row 4. So now we're going to work into each of them. So into the next first one, work 1 yarn over slip stitch. Okay, to the next, another one. Okay, so go ahead and work till the end of the row, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay guys, so I just worked the last stitch. Now we should have 120 stitches. That's it for 17. For 18, chain 1, and then turn, and then we're going to work yarn over slip stitches in every single stitch until the last, and then I'll meet you guys back so we can discuss the next step. Okay guys, so I'm at the end of row 18. Now go ahead and repeat the same steps for the back panel for 69 to 87, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, you're probably confused. Let me jog up your memory. So this is a finished back panel. This is our half done front left panel. So what we're going to do is, for 19, chain 1 and work your way up until you have 30 stitches remaining unworked. Then for 20, chain 1 and work your way back down. Then for 21, work your way up until you have 4 stitches remaining. So go ahead, unwind the video and repeat those steps from row 69 to 87 to complete this front left panel. And I'll meet you guys back. Guys, this is a finished front left panel. I'm done. I ended at 37 rows, so you should have a total of 37 rows for the front left panel. Okay guys, as to which side is the wrong side or the right side, the odd number rows are the right side. So this is the right side. If you turn, you can see that the stitches on the wrong side, at the short rows especially, look not too clean, while on the right side is much more cleaner. So that's how to know the odd number rows are the right side. Okay guys, so to sim, lay the back panel with the wrong side facing up and the right side underneath. So this is the wrong side, and then find your front right panel. This is the front right panel. Place it on top like this. This is the right side of it. It's facing up, and then the wrong sides are facing each other on both panels. So that's how you're going to place both panels to seam. So to begin seaming, first count 44 stitches from this end. On the front right panel, we are counting the top V's from when we worked into the back bump of the foundation chain. So count 44 stitches, attach a stitch marker into that stitch, and then for the back panel, this is the end that we just passing off. Count 44 stitches and then attach a stitch marker, the same stitch marker, into both stitches. Attach a stitch marker into the 44th stitch of both panels. See, we're going to be using slip stitches worked in a very special way. So on this front right panel, we have 2 top V's at the edge. From working to the back bumps of the chains, you have 2 V's, okay? And you have a loop closest to us, that's our front loop, and then the one that's the back loop. And then on this back panel, we have 2 top V's, 2 top loops from the last row of the back panel, and the loop closest to us is the front loop, and the one further away is the back loop. To seam, we're going to insert our hook into the front loop of the front right panel from front to back, like so. And then we're going to insert the same hook into the back loop of the back panel from back to front, like so. Okay, so let's use our main hook. So this is our 4.5 mm hook. Insert your hook into this, okay, and then still go and insert from back to front, like so. And make a slip knot, insert your hook into the loop and pull the loop through. Okay, so to join the next stitch, insert your hook into the front loop of the front panel from front to back. Okay, make sure your yarn should be coming from the inside. Okay, then insert your hook into the back loop of the back panel from back to front, like so, and then pick up your yarn from underneath like this, yarn over and pull through all loops. Okay, that's it. For the next stitch, into the front panel from front to back into the front loop. Then remember your yarn should always be under, and then into the back loop of the back panel from back to front, like so, and pick up your yarn from underneath, yarn over and pull through all loops. Okay, yarn under into the front loop of the front panel, and then into the back loop of the back panel from back to front. Pick up your yarn from underneath, yarn over and pull through all loops. Okay, into the front loop from front to back, then into the back loop from back to front. Pick up your yarn over and pull through. So let's work one more stitch into the front loop. Go from front to back, yarn stays underneath, then into the back panel, go into the back loop from back to front. Insert, pick up your yarn from underneath, yarn over and pull through all loops. Okay, so continue working this slip stitch. Continue working slip stitches this way until the last stitch, and then I'll meet you guys back. As I'm done with this side, go ahead, chain 1 and cut. So To join the other side, the back panel is on top and then the front left panel is underneath. And count down 44 stitches, attach a stitch marker into that stitch, and count down on the front left panel, attach the same stitch marker into both stitches. So we're going to be doing the same thing we did for the other side. Insert your hook into the front loop of the back panel, or the panel facing you, and then insert your hook into the back loop of the panel at the back. Go from back to front, like so. Okay, and then go ahead and make it. So to begin joining, insert your hook into the stitch after the stitch with the stitch marker. That's the 45th stitch. Insert your hook into the front loop of the panel facing you, which is the back panel, and then the panel at the back, which is the front left panel. Insert your hook into the back loop from back to front. Okay, insert your hook into the loop from your slip knot and then pull. To join the next stitch, panel facing you, insert your hook into the front loop. Remember, your yarn stays under, and into the next stitch, the stitch go from back to front. Okay, and yarn over and pull through all loops like so. The next stitch is go into the front loop and then back loop from back to front, yarn over and pull through all loops. So continue and work your way down the entire thing. Okay guys, so now we're going to be seaming at the shoulder. Okay, so when you place this like this, you see that they match. So this should be matched to this groove. Attach a stitch marker to that stitch, top stitch of that row. Okay, and then on this side, the slip stitch part, then this to this, and then this one to this row, and then this to this, and this one should be this mid row. Go ahead and attach stitch marker to that. Okay, so if you place it like so, you can see that they match. So the stitch marker is attached to the top stitch of row 24, and then the other one is attached to the top stitch of row 62. But if you place it like so, you can just see the stitches, the rows match up. So that's how we're going to see. Okay, so we're going to be going into the stitch for row 24. On the right side, it's this groove, this mid valley, and then on the wrong side, it's this V-like. Okay, so remove the stitch marker, and then I'm going to pick up loops. I like to go in through two loops, so maneuver this, okay, and then that's it. So we're going to be seaming using the mattress stitch. Now I've connected this, so I'm going to connect. I'm gonna find this, okay, and then find a similar loop on this panel and seam, okay, and now this, find the corresponding loop on this and seam, okay. So when you seam it, make sure to line the edges. Okay, so I'm done seaming this. You can see I try to match up, And what I do is, after I'm done seaming, I like to thread the yarn into the back of the work. There I can go ahead and make a knot here and there and weave in properly. So for this side, I'm going to be seaming going in like this. So I'm going to insert, I'm using this tail from fasten off on this. So I'm going to insert my needle into the corner stitch and pull. And then from here, I'm going to try to match up. So find a loop here. And then find corresponding loop on this other panel. Okay. See, that's connected. And then on this, find a loop here. Find the corresponding on this panel. Basically, that's all you have to do. Just find a loop here and then find a loop on this panel and find a corresponding loop on this panel. That's basically what you're going to do for the rest of the shoulders. Okay, next step, after you're done seaming the shoulders, and make sure your top is still turned right side out. Okay, so place it like so, and so we're going to start connecting at this end. Make a slip knot and make sure your top is turned right side out. So this is the right side, this is the right side, this is the wrong side of the back panel, and the right side is turned out facing downwards. Okay, so on this end, insert your hook into the corner stitch. Okay, and a loop, and then pull through. Okay, and now make a chain of 16. 1, 2. So I have chained up 16, and now on this panel, insert your hook into the corner stitch, and then make a slip stitch to connect. Okay, now into the next stitch, insert your hook going from back to front like so, and connect, slip stitch. Okay, now we've connected and then we've slip stitch up to the next. Now turn your work like this, and remember the last two slip stitches don't count as a stitch. We're going to work only on the 16 chains that we made, so disregard the last two slip stitches. So turn this, see if you can work into the back bumps. This is insert your hook and work a slip stitch, 1. If you're going to miss this stitch, you can go ahead and attach a stitch marker into it. This is your first stitch, and next back bump, make another slip stitch, 2, slip stitch loosely, next 3. Go ahead and work for the entire 16. Okay, I'm back and I have 16 slip stitches. Now we're going to slip stitch to the next row to attach. Find the stitch and for this we're going to be going in through the 2 top V's. So the next row, insert your hook and slip stitch like so. Now to work up to the next row, insert your hook. Now, because we are kind of working on the inside, insert your hook from front to back like so, and slip stitch. And now we're going to turn, and for this row, which is going to be row 2, we're going to be working into the front loop of the slip stitches from the previous row. So if you look you can see, okay, you can see stitches, the two the two loops. This is the front loop and this is the back loop. So we're going to be working into this front loop. Okay, and those two stitches are the slip stitches, so they don't count. They are the slip stitches. The first is the slip stitch. This one, oh god, this one is the slip stitch to attach, and then this one is to work up to the next row. So this is the one we're going to be working into, this, the third one from our hook, the third slip stitch from our hook. So insert your hook into the front loop and make a slip stitch. You can go ahead and attach a stitch marker to this stitch so you don't miss it. I don't need it, but if you feel you're going to get confused, attach a stitch marker into this stitch. Next, 2, remember, go into the front loop. Next, so we have 3, go ahead and work into the remaining 13. Okay, I'm back and I have 16 front loop only slip stitches. This is row 2. Now to attach, because we're working on the right side, we're going to slip stitch by inserting our hook into the next stitch. We're going to go in from inside, from back to front, and slip stitch. Okay, row 2 is attached, and then to work up to row 3, into the next stitch, slip stitch. Okay, now turn, and for this row we're going to be working into the back loop this time. So remember, the first 2 slip stitches from our hook, the first one is to work up, and then the second is to attach. So this is the one we're going to be working into. Remember, this is the front loop, this is the back loop, so we're going to be going into the back loop this time, the back loop only. Okay, so now into the back loop, work a slip stitch. Remember, you can always attach a stitch marker into this first stitch so you don't miss it. To the next, remember, into the back loop, work a slip stitch. So continue and work for the remaining 14, and then I'll meet you guys back. Guys, so this is row 4, and now we have 16 back loop only slip stitches. Attach to the next stitch with a slip stitch. Because we're working on the wrong side of the top, or the wrong side, we're going to go in from front to back. So slip stitch into the next stitch, go from front. Now row 4 is attached. To work up to row 5, insert your hook into the next stitch, slip stitch, and then turn. And now we're back. And now we are back working on. Now we are back working on the right side. And when we are at the right side, we're going to be working into the front loops. So for this row 5, into the front loop. Okay. Remember, skip the first 2 slip stitches into the front loop. Work slip stitch. To the next, work slip stitch. Next, work. So go ahead and work for the entire row, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, now I'm back here, and because we're working on the right side, we're going to be slip stitching from the inside. So insert your hook into the insert your hook into the top loops of the next stitch from back to front, and slip stitch to attach. Okay, now to work up to row 6, into the next stitch, insert your hook and slip stitch. Okay, this might seem awkward, but now it's attached. And now 10. And now go ahead and repeat these last 2 rows until you've worked a total of 79 rows, and then I'll meet you guys back. I'm sorry guys, I forgot to mention this. Before seaming the shoulders, go ahead and count on this. This is our front right panel. Count from this top shoulder, count 40 stitches, then attach a stitch marker into the 40th stitch. For this panel, we're counting the last row. Then on this, which is our front left panel, we're going to be counting from the top, count 40 stitches. This, we're counting the 2 V's from the foundation chain, to count 40 stitches and attach a stitch marker into the 40th stitch. This means that after the stitch with the stitch marker, you have 80 stitches, which is 80 plus 40, which gives you 120, which is our total, which is our final stitch count. So attach a stitch marker into the 40th, and then from the stitch after that, it's 80 stitches down. So go ahead and repeat the last 2 rows until you hit the stitches before the stitch markers. If you've gotten this far and you still haven't subscribed yet, mate, what are you waiting for? Go on, subscribe. Thank you. Okay. Okay guys, so I just finished up row 79. So at this point you should have 79 rows. Okay, and that means you should be done connecting the stitches below the stitches with the stitch marker. Okay, so now, and you should have ended on the right side of the top when it's facing you, like so. So this is where I just ended right now, and I slip stitch to attach row 79. Now for 80, remove the stitch marker and then slip stitch up to the next stitch, which is the stitch that you just removed the stitch marker from. Slip stitch. Okay, now 10. And since we're working on the right side, we're going to be working front loop only slip stitches. So remember, skip the first 2 slip stitches into the third from a hook, 1 front loop slip stitch, 2. We're going to be working 8. Oh good. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. Okay, and now we're going to chain 1. That's it for 80. Chain 1 and then 10. Okay, 10. And now that we're on the wrong side, we're going to be working back loop slip stitches. So into the first stitch, work a slip stitch. Okay. Into next, work slip stitch. Go ahead and work till the last stitch. Now meet you guys back. Okay, I just worked the last stitch. I have 8 slip stitches. That's it for 81. Go ahead and join to next stitch, slip stitch to attach. Okay, and then slip stitch up to work row 82. This is okay. And now 10. because we're on the right side, we're going to be working front loop on the slip stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, go ahead and repeat the last 2 rows until you get to row 119, because we have 120 stitches and we knocked off 1 stitch for the foundation chain, so that means we're actually joining 119 stitches on each side. So go ahead and repeat the last 2 rows until you hit the last stitch here, and that should be row 190. Okay, so insert your hook into the front loop, okay, and insert your hook into the loop from your slip knot and pull, and then chain 1. This is your first stitch. Then into the next stitch, into the next front loop, work slip stitch, okay, and into the next work another slip stitch. So go ahead and work for, you have 3 stitches now, work for the remaining 5, and then I'll meet you guys back. I'm back and I have 8 stitches worked. Remove the stitch marker, okay, and then attach. Okay, now to work up to the next row, slip stitch up to the next stitch, and now turn. You get the idea. So go ahead and repeat the same thing we did for this side on this side. Guys, for this side, you're going to repeat the steps until you've worked the last stitch, which is going to give you a total of 119 rows on this side. Then on this side, when you work the last stitch, you should have 119 rows, but then you're not going to stop here for this. You're going to work for the back of the neck, and you're going to start from this row that we that we joined to this shoulder portion. This is row 62. You're going to work into this row as well, and then into the next row you can find a loop or 2 to attach. This is a row, this groove mid is a row, this V-like is another row, and then this valley groove thing is another row. So you're going to work for here. You should have a total of 39 rows plus the 19 from plus the 119 from here should be 158 rows. So when you get here and you've worked this to this point, I'll meet you guys back so we can seam together. Okay guys, finally I'm back and done. The final thing for us to do is to seam this together. Next, fold like so. Okay, so for this one, we're going to be inserting, this is the back of the neck. We're going to be going in through the back loop. Then on this, we're going to be going in through the front loop.